Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 115th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So this is without a doubt the biggest seller to come out of the 1990s that I haven't covered on this page yet. The only one I can think of that comes anywhere close in terms of sales is MC Hammer's Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em, but obviously I don't really hold that record in quite as high regard as this one. Make no mistake, there's plenty of other classic LPs that are overdue that I have on the docket for the next group. I just felt like I had to tackle Biggie's legendary second album here, because now that I've had more than one video covering the likes of Ice Cube, Doom, El Producto, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, or Ghostface Killah, I really didn't have any good excuse to pass it up. You really can't talk about life after death without discussing a prevalent issue that's become more and more prominent throughout the recent years of hip hop, that being posthumous releases. I've mentioned before how I'm not a big fan of those albums for the most part, as I feel they're usually exploitative and go directly against the artist's wishes. However, I actually saw someone online before who tried and say it's hypocritical that people will criticize the estates of someone like XXXTentacion or Juice World, yet the same people won't have an issue with Biggie's second album here, or Tupac's posthumous release as Machiavelli, the Don Illuminati. Obviously, if you don't have a hole in your head, you can probably realize what the difference in those examples are, considering both Tupac and Big planned and crafted both of these projects virtually in their entirety, with them only really being posthumous releases in the loosest sense. Not only did the Machiavelli album drop just a couple months after Pac's murder, but Biggie's sophomore LP came only 16 days following his death. So keeping that in mind, I find it drastically different than someone who's just having their old demos and rough drafts posted and monetized when half the time it's probably something that wasn't even intended to make it past the cutting room floor. I think some people just assume that life after death has to be an idea retroactively thought up, due to it fitting the tragic passing of Big, almost to a haunting degree. This album even built on the image he'd introduced to the world on his culture-shifting debut, Ready to Die, where he mastered this blend of big money talk about the high life with the grimy and unsavory events of the streets, even before Hove would take that to a whole nother level. What Biggie brought to Bad Boy, besides millions of dollars, was a lyrical ability and deep reverence to the old school pioneers before him that didn't seem quite as essential to the work guys like Diddy and Mace were putting out. Of course, they both had their place in Big's success story, but Life After Death went further out of the comfort zone that Puff usually worked within. It takes the darkest moments of the debut, like suicidal thoughts, and dedicates a considerable amount of time on this thing to exploring that side of the Notorious B.I.G.'s multifaceted personality. Of course, we still receive our fair share of catchy, more accessible singles geared for radio play, but it really doesn't interfere with the experience to me as much as it does add another dimension and help the general flow and pace of the album. What really sticks out, though, is Biggie's approach and execution of his bars, as they're not just always technically dense and reference heavy, but he delivers them with so much personality and technique that his voice and flow virtually came across as their own instrument. He's just the epitome of someone who was born to rap, and he was one of the first MCs to truly deliver and succeed with his own pocket. Honestly, succeed is probably an understatement for how momentous his biggest songs were, as they've become some of the most universal hip hop material to ever grace the genre. Big also showed he wasn't above any of the beefs that he still had under his nose at the time, but most notable was probably his killer response to Tupac with the diss track Long Kiss Goodnight. I didn't really think about how much this project shared with my last post, with both being the second release by each artist, both including death in the title, and both having scathing diss tracks that tore apart their adversaries. It would have been an even bigger coincidence if Biggie closed out this LP with his diss the way Cube did, but instead it ended up being the second to last track here. Of course, Puff Daddy and Biggie himself are in the mix of producers, but removing them, this is still easily one of the most stacked sets of beatmakers you could ever have, at least if you were in the business of making boom bap in New York in the 90s. These names include Mark Pitts, The Hitmen, Buck Wild, DJ Clark Kent, DJ Premier, Easy Mo B, Havoc, Darren Jones, KG, and RZA. They also really spared no expense when it came to the featured artists on Life After Death, as we get appearances from the likes of R. Kelly, Angela Winbush, Kelly Price, Diddy, Mace, 112, Lil Kim, Carl Thomas, DMC, Jay-Z, Too Short, The Lox, and of course Bone Thugs and Harmony. Though I'm going to leave out Long Kiss Goodnight as I praised it earlier, and this is a pretty lengthy double album. I narrowed my honorable mentions down to Hypnotize, Last Day, I Love the Dough, What's Beef, Mo Money, Mo Problems, I Got a Story to Tell, Going Back to Cali, Sky's the Limit, My Downfall, and The World is Filled. My three favorite tracks on here overall would probably have to be Kick in the Door, Notorious Thugs, and the 10 Crack Commandments. Thank you for watching my 115th video. Next time we're going to start a new set of modern albums, so tune in to see what current legend I'm going to start that group off with. And if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs are from the final album of arguably the greatest to ever do it. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.